We are constantly sold the idea of AI as a flawless, unified digital assistant. But in a high-stakes production environment, that polished marketing illusion shatters. Our laboratory was processing an active archive of over 800 historical photographs from the Eastern Front of the First World War. This workflow requires absolute documentary precision, verifying artillery specifications, uniform fabric types, and lighting conditions. Casual prompting isn't enough to meet this standard. Entrusting both historical analysis and graphical execution to a single unified system creates a massive operational risk. At this production volume, a single invisible error in the backend effectively stops the entire project. The failure began with a routine task. I uploaded a standard 85 kilobyte photograph, confirmed the thumbnail was visible in the chat, and requested a simple restoration. The AI replied immediately, insisting that I upload an image because it couldn't see any file. Repeated attempts only made it worse. The interface began responding to images I had uploaded 10 minutes prior, eventually falling into a permanent loop where it simply repeated the same error message over and over. When I switched to a different task, accessing a linked Google Drive archive clearly visible in the sidebar, the system provided the same paradoxical response. It claimed the folder didn't exist. There was no standard error code. The software used natural language to confidently insist that the evidence sitting on my screen was an illusion. This is a confident, silent failure. It erodes trust by forcing the user to troubleshoot their own hardware while the software itself is malfunctioning in the background. At that point, the project shifted. I stopped trying to fix the image and began a technical autopsy of the AI. The thumbnails rendered correctly and survived page refreshes, which effectively ruled out a local browser issue or a broken internet connection. Inside the chat history, the file IDs were correctly registered. The data had reached the backend. Despite these facts, the specific module responsible for image editing acted as if it were operating on a void. This wasn't a network drop. This was a fundamental fracture in the system's internal reality. To understand why this happens, you have to look at how these systems are built. Modern AI is a fragile conglomerate of isolated microservices, not a single unified brain. In this case, Silo 1, the interface, was communicating perfectly with Silo 2, the language model's memory. The AI knew the file was there, but the third fragment, the execution backend, remained completely dark. It was disconnected from the information held by the other two. This is a component desync. The language model remembers the upload, but the tools required to act on it lack synchronized access to the file. The system isn't lying to you. Its different parts are simply trapped on different versions of the same conversation. If the core architecture is inherently fragile, a professional production shouldn't be entirely dependent on it. This realization forced us to pivot to a decoupled process. We dismantled the all-in-one AI workflow and rebuilt it as a modular pipeline. The AI's role is now strictly limited to data analysis. It parses the historical records and generates the text-based metadata required for the scene. That raw specification is then handed off to a completely external graphics engine for the physical restoration, keeping the AI away from the execution phase entirely. Every output then undergoes a final round of human quality control to verify the historical accuracy. By stripping AI of execution power, we turned a fragile bottleneck into a resilient industrial pipeline. The promise of a seamless digital co-pilot is exciting, but the reality of professional work requires a modular, heavily engineered system. The success of our Eastern Front archive is now proof of that stability. We can process hundreds of images because the workflow is no longer tied to the whims of a single interface. True professionals don't look for the best AI model. They look for ways to build workflows that survive the moment the AI fails. Artificial intelligence is just software. It is prone to edge cases, synchronization errors, and silent failures. During this entire investigation, the subject under the microscope was never actually the archival photographs. We were documenting the behavior of the AI itself,